G'day and welcome to another review of the footy. I'm Josh Jenkins. Welcome to the field. It's going to be short, sharp and shiny, nice and speedy this week because it's that time of year. We've officially arrived in winter and the kids are all sick. The timing is unbelievable. We've got two at home and, of course, Mum's working this week. So it lands on me, but the footy still takes some level of priority. So let's hook straight in. As I said, well, as I like to say, the line I like to steal from the great man, Pat McAfee, the former NFL punter turned media megastar in the States. Be a friend, tell a friend. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you're watching and commenting and having a bit of fun as we are. Now, straight into it. I want to talk about the Hawks. Got to talk about Harley because everyone else seems to. The Dees, what was that? What was that from Melbourne in the red centre? I want to talk about the halfway mark. So pick some seeds, some top four seeds. And I reckon it's a bit murky. Sydney stand above everyone at the moment. But positions 2, 3 and 4, forget the ladder. It's a fascinating little season we've got ahead of us. And an All-Australian 22. And I've got some interesting names in there as well. So stay tuned for that. But first, the Hawks, they need to lead the show because they are a team I didn't have a lot of love for. I didn't expect them to do much this season. And 4 or 5 weeks in, to be honest, I was thinking, well, maybe I'd overrated where I thought they'd be. I picked them to finish second last. They might finish second last in the top 8. They might make it the way they're going to one of the more informed teams in the competition. Aside from the cough up or even allowing for the cough up in Adelaide against the Power where they conceded 2 goals inside a minute to lose that game. Somehow they are going beautifully. They handled and hammered Adelaide early in that game, put that game to absolute bed from the get-go. The Crows offered completely and utterly nothing, and that's a story in and of itself. But the Hawks are up and about. Dylan Moore, I spoke about Chad Warner a couple of weeks ago against the Dogs. Did he or has he put together the greatest individual game of the season? He had 28 disposals, kicked 3 goals and run amok. What about Dylan Moore? 27 touches, a 5-goal haul, if you don't mind, a dozen or so score involvements. He's very efficient. His set shot goal kicking record is unbelievable. He is as unassuming and as hardworking as you'll ever see. And I'll tell you what, numbers like that, 27 and 5. Will he ever have a game as big as that again? I'm not sure, but I'll tell you what, that is a very, very nice day at the office and a nice test for the umpires. If he doesn't get 3, the Brownlow can go and jump. Ginnivan, Jackie Boy, he's flying as well. Had close enough to 20 disposals, kicked a couple, missed a couple, set up a couple. He is quite dangerous and damaging for that Hawthorn team. They are running with, a handful of small forwards who are very similar in stature, build and style, but they're getting it done. They're all impacting the game. And a guy like the Wizard, Nick Watson, he played at Box Hill on the weekend, so he can't get in. So that small forward brigade is going really well. Jack Gunston looks rejuvenated as well. He's kicking a few most weeks at the moment. And the middle to older guys, so Gunston and Carl Amon, Sam Frost is having a great season. James Sicily looks to be back in form. Jarman Impey's playing some good footy. They're getting great work and great productivity from whichever ruckman seems to be in. They were trying to play Meek and Reeves together. That's a no-no. They're very, very similar, those two. But whichever's playing is the number 1 ruck. Both guys have done well over the past 6 or 8 weeks. Bruce looks to be a really nice sub. He looks to be... Think back to Daniel G and Saracusa, who when the sub-vest was first brought in, he almost wore it week in, week out because he could really come in as a composed head and impact the game. Well, Luke Bruce can be the same. You can bring him in with 20 minutes to go in the game and put him on ball and know that he's going to give you something and be understanding of the game scenario and the situation and what the game needs. And equally, you can put him forward if the forward line hasn't been able to get it done. He can kick 2 goals in 2 minutes from absolutely nowhere. So I'm loving Luke Bruce as the sub. Now, they are 5 and 7 on the season. That first month or so it may come back to haunt them. But 5 and 7, only 2 games out of the 8. It's a big fortnight before the bye, a big opportunity. They've got the Giants in Tassie, And that's close enough to a 50-50 based on how both teams have been performing. And the Tassie element has to give the Hawks a goal or so. It's probably worth 6 to 10 points to them down there. And then they've got the Tigers going into the bye. So don't fall asleep. Don't give that one up. Don't cough that one up. I saw Richmond beat Sydney at the MCG earlier in the season. So don't fall asleep before the bye. If they can go 2-0, get to 7-7 as the one of the more informed teams in the competition, then who knows what the Hawks might do in the second half of 2024. Now, on to Harley Reid, the most talked about player in the competition. He lit up the first half, the second quarter in particular in that game, West Coast and St Kilda. And then he copped his first tag. Marcus Windhager went to him and did a really good job, shut him out of the game. Only 3 touches in the second half. Very little assistance as well. I reckon the tag may have even caught some of his teammates off guard. They weren't physical. They weren't going after Windhager. They weren't trying to do things to allow Reid to get in the game. There were no, easy wraparound handballs. As a tagger or as a tagged player, I would imagine you'd want nothing more than to go and take a kick in. Now, I know Harley Reid's unlikely to take a kick in, but go back and take a kick in. Go and get a sideways mark. Go and get a wrap around the ruckman and get a handball receive just to feel that footy and get away from your tagger. Get a couple of easy opportunities. Allow your teammates or ask your teammates to give you the footy. Say, look, I'm getting tagged and I'd love to get my hands on the footy a couple of times just to get myself involved in the game. He's only played 11. He's going to play another 275 or so, hopefully more. I'd expect him to get tagged in 90% of those. So even though we are in an era of teams and coaches who love to back their own structure and not necessarily implement or employ a tagger, Reid is the type of dynamo that demands one, and we've seen for the first time that it can be done. So as a young player, you can tag him. Of course, he's got the suspension hanging over his head. It's unfortunate. He won't be the Rising Star winner for this season either, but I think he's going to win some bigger awards than the Rising Star, with all due respect to the award. I want to move along, as I said, short and sharp, to the Dees. Now, I've been to Alice Springs as a player with the Crows and copped it 80 plus, may have even been 90 points in Alice Springs against the Demons. So I know what it's like to travel there, get absolutely hammered, and then have to come back and try and lift yourself up off the canvas. But that was a 92-point loss for the ages. So it was the largest loss in the Simon Goodwin era. It was the largest score against in the Simon Goodwin era. A couple of numbers that would just be startling. Now, I know they're missing Jake Lever. There's no doubt about the fact that they are missing Jake Lever, but Stephen May was beaten all ends up. He was completely beaten in that game. He was making some strange decisions. He was getting caught halfway when it comes to pressing up and getting at the ball carrier, which he's amazing at. He was getting beaten in one-on-ones. He was just looking around. Him and Gawn, Big Max, were caught in conversation, an interesting conversation at three-quarter time. Max is carrying a mammoth load. Now, this is where it becomes tricky for the Dees because at the moment, they are outside the 8. Ideally, you're giving Max 1, maybe 2 spells in the back half of the season. He's not a young man. He's carrying a big load. He's playing massive minutes in the ruck. He's willing himself to the line each and every week. I watched him live go through a fitness test where I thought he had no chance of playing in that game of footy against the Saints at the G a couple of weeks ago. And not only did he played the whole game and he dominated Rowan Marshall. But that's got to have an effect on the body long term, a cumulative effect on the body where at some point he may tip over the edge and you don't get him back. Fatigue sets in, mental fatigue, physical fatigue, and that's it. He'll be carrying injuries for sure, particularly as a ruckman. So he's a concern. Their forward line, again, absolutely nothing. Even in some of their better performances, their forward line has done absolutely nothing. So Harrison Petty, 2 touches for the game. Bailey Fritsch, 10 disposals. At least 5 or 6 of those were in the last quarter when he went behind the footy. Shane McAdam had 11, didn't score. Cozzy Pickett had 13, didn't kick a goal. He kicked it behind or 2. So their forward line's doing absolutely nothing. Tom McDonald was thrown forward late in the contest. So there are holes in that forward line. It continues to be an issue for them. But the biggest concern would have to be the defensive aspect of the game. They're a defensive squad. They're a team that relies on its team defense. And I know, again, Lever's out of this team. But for them to concede the marks they gave up, the uncontested marks, you could see late in that game, Clark and Ryan and Pearce and Brayshaw, they're just chipping the footy around like it's kick to kick. And you could see some of the Melbourne forwards, Petrarca and a few others, saying, come forward and stop some of these marks. We are just getting dictated to, but Melbourne just simply weren't there to play. As I mentioned, it's the largest defeat in the Simon Goodwin era. They've got to wait all the way to King's birthday to get another opportunity at it. And I tell you what, that is a big, big game. A big, big game. A wounded Collingwood, literally speaking, and a wounded Melbourne, figuratively speaking. That is going to be an unbelievable game of footy, and the outcome will be absolutely fascinating. Can't wait for it. Now, it's the halfway mark, unofficially speaking. The fixtures got us all mumbled and jumbled thanks to round 0 or opening round or whatever they called it. But loosely speaking, we are at the halfway point of the year. So some awards and some predictions in terms of the top 4. So pre-season, hand in the air. I went with the Lions to win the premiership, Carlton to play against them in the grand final, Collingwood at 3 and Adelaide at 4. Well, Adelaide are stinky. They are done. They are basically done. They've got Richmond on Thursday night. And I'll tell you what, if they lose that, they'll absolutely tear the joint apart. But as we stand, Sydney at number 1, there's no, and I almost said it, there's no other thing that needs to be said. Sydney are the number 1 seed in the competition. Again, I've got no idea how they lost that game earlier in the season against Richmond. Otherwise, they'd be undefeated. I've got Collingwood at 2. I thought with at least a target last week in the air, in the front half, they would have beaten the Western Bulldogs. They just simply could not get the ball past halfway because they had no one to kick it to. Ash Johnson's not ready to play that role. Oleg Markov was trying to play that role. They just didn't have anyone to kick the footy to. I've got them at 2. Have a look at their form since going 0-3. And you can include the Bulldogs loss because have a look at the personnel that weren't there. You get some of those guys back. I think they beat the Dogs with Brody Mychek in the team. As simple as that. They may even beat them with Mason Cox in the team because they've got a target to kick to and someone who can compete in the air. The Dogs just continually repelled. And through weight of numbers, they got the job done. I'm loving what Collingwood are doing. I've got them at number 2, and you got to factor in the MCG. You got to factor in 95,000 Collingwood fans. It's a big deal. Carlton at 3. Similar reasons when it comes to the MCG factor, but star power is what they have above and beyond everyone else. Now, I did a little video for the 7 AFL socials this week, and I asked a question. Does anyone have a Fab 5 better than Carlton's? So I'm talking Sam Walsh and Patrick Cripps in the middle. I'm talking Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay in the front half, and I'm talking the wall of Jacob Wiedering in the back half. So Walsh, Wiedering, Mackay, Curnow, and Cripps. Does anyone have a better 5 than that? And also a 5 spread across the ground. You've got a key defender who sets everything up. You've got 2 gun mids. One's tough inside, hard-working bull. One's an inside-outside running machine, a workhorse. And then you've got 2 key forwards, both of whom who have Coleman medals. One of them's got 2, soon to be 3. Has anyone got a better Fab 5 than that? And I tell you what, if Harry's not careful, Tom DeConing might take 5th spot, so they may have 6. So let me know. Do you think anyone's got a better Fab 5 than what Carlton have to offer? So they're at 3, and this is a difficult part. At 4, I've got the GWS Giants. I do think they can recapture some of their form. They were flying alongside Sydney early in the season. They need to get healthy. They've missed guys like Ash and Kelly and a few others who have missed time across the season. Toby Green's spent some time out of the team for other reasons. So if they can get their mojo back and their personnel back, and same can be said with Collingwood and Carlton, to be honest, if those guys are back for those respective teams, then certainly Carlton, GWS, Collingwood, and Sydney are my top 4 seeds. Quickly, in All-Australian 22, I've put a moderate level of thought and research into this, so go easy if you don't like it. Defensively speaking, McGovern, May, and Ryan as your deeper defenders. Then I've got Nick Martin. His move to halfback's been sensational. Harris Andrews, who without him, Brisbane would be absolutely shot. if they aren't already. And Jordan Clark, we identified him a few weeks ago. He is charging toward an All-Australian blazer on the halfback flank. So McGovern, May and Luke Ryan, his teammate Jordan Clark, Harris Andrews and Nick Martin are the back six. Across the middle, Errol Goulden, I think he's still one of, if not the premier performed winger in the competition, as his teammates are getting all the love. He's still doing his thing. Zach Merritt can be the captain. He is on fire. And I'll give Max Holmes some love from the Cats. He's up and about. He's really carrying the Cats midfield at the moment. We know he's played plenty of time on the wing. Half forwards, Langford. I've got him in there. He's a goal-kicking force. I think he'll kick 20 or 30 in the back half of the year to get up to 50, 55 and demand a spot. Josh Tracy from Fremantle. How about that? If you have a look across the competition, he ain't that far away. His goal kicking is very accurate. Fremantle are a much improved team on the back of guys like him improving. He is a very, very rough chance of making All-Australian, but I'll tell you what, he is not that far away. And Tyson Stengel, he's back to his absolute best. I've loved his performances. He's kicked more goals than Hawkins and Cameron. He is doing nice things. Jesse Hogan deserves a spot, as does Ben King, equal leader in the Coleman medal, and Jake Waterman, who would be leading the Coleman medal if he had not missed a game or two. In the ruck, Brodie Grundy, I think he edges out Max Gawn. I think he edges out Rowan Marshall for sure. And there might be one or two others, but I'll tell you what, Grundy has transformed the Sydney midfield. His teammate Isaac Heaney and Nicholas Dacos on the ball. On the bench, I started with Treloar. I started with Cripps. And then you can throw it open. And I'll tell you what, picking the midfield group for this season is very, very difficult. You can throw Sarong. You can throw Butters. You can throw all those types of guys into the mix. I don't envy the All-Australian selectors. So there's a starting 18 plus a whole heap you can throw on the bench. I've thrown Josh Tracy in there. Some will laugh. I tell you what, I would have laughed 12 months ago. I didn't think he'd make it at the grade, let alone be a borderline All-Australian. But there you go. That's the way we've seen things this week. As I said, short, sharp, and shiny. Got to get a move on because the kids are sick. I'll probably be sick, but I'll be back again next week. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. Enjoy the footy this week, the last Thursday of the season. So make sure you catch Richmond and Adelaide live on Channel 7. And otherwise, till next week, we'll chat again.